Thank you, David. So the thing I'm going to be talking about is asking questions and paying attention to evidence, because that is the key. Corporate media and 9/11 is a big issue. Corporate media can't be trusted. While media reports may report some facts accurately, they may not cover all the relevant facts. Partial explanations are not informative. Missing facts lead to erroneous understandings. Missing facts lead to manipulation. Missing facts lead to deception, and missing facts affect a cover-up. 9/11 is a media example of missing facts. Investigative journalism is no longer a function of mainstream media. Some will say it never was. Over time, media showed, as far as the Twin Towers goes, mostly distant views. That you see the plane hit, you see the buildings fall. The time scale is obscured. The hour plus when the towers were burning, there was no sign of visible deformation. But that's forgotten by many people who see the planes hit, the buildings fall, in the recap of the history. And it's amazing how many people just don't know that there was this hour. It's just like lost. They know it was there, but they can't put two and two together. Even the sudden onset of destruction in a wood frame building, it doesn't happen. It's organic. Steel frame buildings certainly won't do that. And this missing time creates a lot of confusion. What we're going to see here is we're going to see the North Tower coming down, and what we're going to see it collapsing. And we're going to go through this a couple of times and look at the stuff on the right-hand side that's falling, and you can see the demolition wave that's going down the side of the building. It's going down as fast as material and free. Now, this stuff has been shown numerous times, but no one's provided the context for it. Look at the stuff on the right, it's falling, and the demolition wave is continuing to go down as faster than stuff in free fall. Cannot be a gravity-only collapse. Absolutely not possible to have that. An engineering professor called Zdeněk Bazant created an explanation, came out days after 9/11, fully baked, and what he shows is going from left to right, the buildings were hit, they started to weaken, they started to collapse, they collapsed in a big pile drivers, knocks it down to a small pile, and then we end up with this pile on the right-hand side. If you take a look at the photos, there was nothing at the top of the building to push it down. There's no pile driver, there's nothing up there, so this means that the explanation is false, because there's no item number one. There's no top of the building, and to create this big pile. Now let's go take a look at this. What's under this pile? Under the pile, what we have are survivors from what we call the miracle of Ladder 6. 13 survivors. We're not hearing the volume. So what we're basically hearing is that you're seeing the buildings coming down. There was survivors in this collapse. These are some of the firefighters giving their impressions. Look at the stuff that's being ejected out. They're talking about what it sounded like. It sounded like you were between in a tunnel between two freight trains that are moving. There's all this stuff that they're talking about what it was like to be there. I can't narrate everything on this, but so what they're ultimately going to be doing here is showing that you can see the kind of the smoke going away. But now what they're talking about is noticing that there's lights above them, and it must have been a flashlight. Oh no, it doesn't look like a flashlight. It looks like a beautiful blue sky above us.
No,
and says, well, we're under 105 stories of crap. How can that be? Well, that's just the way it is. That's kind of where the clip ends. So they look up and they see blue sky. Where could this possibly have come from? Well, this is what the ground zero looked like. And if you take a look, at the bottom right-hand side, can you see that? No, you can't see. So we're going to be looking at this area really closely, because what you have is the perimeter columns in this area with the core column sticking up in the middle. Here's a zoom in of it. What you see are the perimeter columns standing up. There's the core columns in the middle, and there's no pile of stuff laid on top. There's no 105 stories of stuff that's piled. Everything's been blown explodedly outwards. This pile doesn't exist. Another media thing that has shown up in the media, but was only shown the first time, is Dan Rather's comment about Building 7 collapsing like it had been destroyed by means of controlled demolition. I'm probably going to interrupt this, because Most of us have seen Building 7 come down, and without the audio, with Dan rather actually talking about it, it's not going to be quite as exciting. Actually, for Google Hangouts purposes, we'll just leave it run. So he basically says that there's all this stuff going on. It looks like a building with controlled demolition. It's been done with well-placed explosives or dynamite. So he talks about this, but this is ultimately never repeated. I don't have any sound at all here on this side. You got sound. So the corporate media only provides partial explanations. It's not very informative. 9/11 is an example of the media missing facts, leaving bad information out there. But the alternative media isn't always your friend. The power of the media is immense. In the Pentagon on 9/11 is a great example from the alternative media point of view. I have found that it's easier to convince a George W. Bush fan that 9/11 was an inside job than to convince a 9/11 truther that a plane hit the Pentagon. Actually, I've never convinced a George W. Bush fan, but that's another story. The alternative media has relentlessly reinforced the no plane impact at the Pentagon meme. YouTube, DVDs, 9/11 circuit speakers, but not 9/11 Truth, have relentlessly pushed no plane at the Pentagon. Most 9/11 truthers won't look at, are unable to see the evidence that's presented about a plane, because I think it disturbs their 9/11 worldview and it discredits their heroes who should have looked. I've put together a 5-hour lecture just released on Tuesday, going through all the evidence, the physical damage. I'm an engineer. I take a look. What's the evidence show? How do I explain this? What have people overlooked? What have they not? It's incredible what's not. My largest criticism of this is the large plane impact people have largely stayed on the sidelines and let other people take the narrative. Loose Change, for example, estimated that it had been watched by over 50 million views. It's very influential, handles most 9/11 issues very well. Twin Towers, Building 7. However, the Pentagon is poorly researched and poorly explained. In this clip, they're going to be going through talking about how there's a 16-foot hole in the building, and they're going to talk away the damage that you just saw in that image on the first floor is 90 feet of damage. 90 feet of damage. Bob Poole is going to be talking only about the 16-foot hole, how he didn't see any damage or plane parts on the ground, but the key point is that when he talks about the size of the hole, he only talks about the hole on the second floor. The Loose Change downplays 90 feet of continuous openings in the first floor facade. The photo of the first floor wall, which you saw with fires burning deep inside, was interpreted by the narrator for the documentary's viewers as just damaged wall. He dismisses the 100 feet of missing facade, 90 feet of missing first row columns that are there or aren't there. Dave Van Kleist, another in plain sight, very influential. It was where I first learned about the Pentagon, got all the wrong information, repeated it many times, but focused ultimately on it. He's talking here about how there's the 3 rings of the Pentagon, and the plane has to go through them. And he's talking about how each wall has 18 inches of steel reinforced concrete, but in fact, there is none. And we'll be going through that in a few moments. So he's asking, how can a plane go through 9 feet of steel reinforced concrete and come out with a hole on the other side? Well, it's because he just made it up. And it's been repeated. I repeated it because I heard it from people that I thought had done their homework. There is first of all, the first 2 floors are one large open area. The first 2 floors, the rings that you see are only the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors. So between the entrance point on the E-ring and the exit hole on the C-ring, all there is core columns, the columns, the original 1942 era. This is what it looks like. I've highlighted the blue. On the left-hand side, you see the entrance hole. On the right-hand side of the E, D, and C, you see the exit hole. The blue area is simply the continuous opening. No, even when he shows the videos of the plane saying, "Oh, this is all crap." There's no intervening walls, and he doesn't comment on it, right? So we'll take you a quick tour from the E ring to the C ring. The plane's going to be coming in. According to this, it's going to be coming in at about 52 degrees angle, and it's going to go through the 3 rings and come out the little thing that's highlighted called the C ring exit hole. It's going to knock down 100 feet of first floor wall. There's a small 16 or 18 foot opening on the second floor. That it's going to be the only thing that the videos that you get will talk about. There was no 18 inches of steel reinforced concrete and brick and limestone. There was limestone, and that's it. And the E-ring, outer E-ring wall, and nothing in between. And the C-ring is just 2 regular bricks thick wall. The E-ring wall was, as it was built before 9/11, had blast resistant windows, steel frame around the outside, welded to a piece of metal at the top and the bottom, and that was bolted through. This is what they look like. This is what they look like. You've got the blast resistant windows being held up from these frames with these little fingers. And if you look at the very bottom right hand, the very bottom of the window, you'll see that there's bolts. Those are the only bolts holding this entire assembly into the building. All you have to do is break those bolts. And again, you can see this is just another picture. Nothing else really to talk about except you can see the fingers holding the windows. This is a C-ring exit hole. People said there were shape charges to blow it apart. Actually, you can see plaster wire mesh in the background. You can see that the wall is only 2 bricks thick. Another picture showing clearly the wall is 2 bricks thick. There's dozens of these. There's paths through the columns. People have miscalculated the width of the size of the columns, and they said, "Oh, we couldn't get through them." But if you actually draw them to scale, you can do a graphical analysis showing it. There are 3 paths through it. One's 1.5 feet, and there are 2 that are about 2.5 feet wide, going through the columns. Stuff can get through from the impact point to the outer. This has been completely obliterated from any Pentagon discussion that any 9/11 video has ever put out. The plane approach has evidence all along the way. Many independent data points. We have radar and flight data recorder. You may not believe the flight data recorder. Radar, most people believe. You see the plane's approach to the Arlington area, does the circle. There's a shadow that's captured by the Citgo security camera. There's a notched tree on Washington Boulevard. There's damage to 5 light posts, including the infamous light post, Lloyd's taxi cab. There's a damaged leading wing slat falling onto the ground. I found that. Where's the rest of the analysts, right? If I can find all this stuff. There's near terminus impact. There's a generator trailer retaining wall. And, of course, the Pentagon facade impact. All this is physical damage that can only be explained really by a large airplane. Here's the flight path that's coming up. The plane comes in from the left, circles around, goes to the Pentagon at the top right. This is a 14,000-foot radius. The G forces for this is about 0.6 G, well within the limits of a plane. By the way, most people have heard the Citizen Investigation Team north of Citgo path. So we've just seen the 14,000-foot path, which is considered to be too dangerous for a commercial airline flyer to fly. The CIT, if you're going to follow radar at all, and coming the approach path and go over Tom Trapezio's back porch at 1400 South Barton and approach, you're going to have this little blip that you're going to see, this little thing at the end. It's a 2,000-foot radius turn that's going to be there, that whether the plane hits the building at the wrong angle or flies over, whatever. You can't have this at 540 miles an hour. You can't have this because it would be 9 Gs. You can't turn a plane this way. 9 Gs is effectively a crash. You can't. The plane won't survive it, that kind of a turn. Now we're going to go through 8 points of evidence here. We've got the shadow. We've got the tree with the notch. We got the light poles. We got the security camera. We got the leading wing slat. We've got the diesel generator. Then we have the retaining wall, the tree at column 16. The Citgo camera has the shadow passing. You see the little black shadow? That's where it's going to be. This is what was captured in the security cam. This is before the shadow. Here's the shadow. Not much of a, but there it is. It's not a car. It's going back and forth. Again, no shadow. There's a shadow, right? So there it is, evidence that something was going on there. South of Sitco, there's a notched tree. There's a Pentagon. There's a tree. It looks kind of funny at the top, right? That's because a plane has gone and sliced off the top. Possibly even the engine has been where it's the kind of the notch. Here's where it's zoomed in. The top is stripped and cut, and I have photos of this a year earlier from the same location. Okay, another pair of them, in which you can see that's got a bushy top on it. After 9/11, it's a flat top. You got 5 light poles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Light pole number 2 sets the outer limit because all the other light poles are severed. They're sliced. The light pole number 2 is just bent. It's knocked over. It's bent at a 90-degree angle. And what happens is that sets the furthest extent of the left wing. Couldn't have been any further over, or it would have severed it. Couldn't be any more to the right, or it would have missed it. And the lower lamp support arm is what hit Lloyd's taxi cab. Right, all the parts are accounted for if you look. The location of leading wing slat, but after hitting light pole number 3, continuing towards the impact point, it drops a front piece of the wing. This is a Boeing 757 leading wing slat. You can see on the right-hand side there's a curve to the shape, and there's an extension bar. Here it is laying on the ground. You can tell where it is. I've been able to identify where it is. No one's known where it was until I identified it. I looked. This is evidence, right? Here it is, kind of zoomed in, and now what you see is a wing slat. You can see again the curvature. You can see the extension bar, and you can see the similar piece that was on the repair jig. Now we're going to get close to the wall. We're going to take a look at the security camera. We're going to look at the diesel generator trailer, the initial location of the wire spools, the retaining wall gouge, the tree in the front of column 16. There are 2 security cameras that capture the video. In New Pearl Harbor, Massimo Mizuko says that they can be no more than 1/30 of a second. He says that they should be the same, but he alludes that they could be more 1/30 of a second. But he's wrong. They're 4/30 of a second difference. And if you do that, you can do that, first of all, by looking at Mickey Bell's truck. He said he looked at all of them, they're all the same. Mickey Bell's truck drives across the lawn. He can tell how far he's driving, about 28 miles an hour. He almost got whacked, jumped in the car, and left. 4/30 of a second between the cameras. And if you use that, calculate how fast the plane was moving in those 2 videos or 2 frames. It's moving 106 feet in 0.133 seconds, 542 miles an hour, plus or minus error. That's what you can find if you look. Here's a diesel generator. It's been whacked. It's been hit by the right engine. It's going to actually start the plane rotating. We're going to talk about the wire spools. People wondered where they were. How could the plane have gotten over them? Well, they started in a certain location. They ended up at a different place. Here they are. Zoom in. I've highlighted the colors so you can see where they are. And in the post-collapse, you can see where they ended up. Different places. Here's the west wall. We're going to talk about the tree in front of column 16. The mysterious tree that no one knows where it was. Michael Wilson's video that puts a lot of stuff in context. Has a plane hitting the tree, pushing it down, knocking it out of the way. It disappears. It's never talked about ever in any 9/11. But it's a huge tree. How do you get rid of a tree, right? So what happened to the tree? People have seen this, have zoomed in and said, well, look at these columns. They go all the way to the ground. No. What you're seeing here is you're seeing the column 16 is hanging down at an angle, and the thing at the bottom is the tree stump. I've only once in all my research had someone point out there is a tree stump here. I said, what tree stump? And I looked and remembered it. And as I'm finding other stuff, I find in the post-collapse wall, there's the tree stump. It's a shattered tree stump. It's not been cut with a chainsaw. It's shattered. It's been whacked. On the north side, I couldn't figure out what these things were. I was always afraid to look. I don't know how to explain these things here. They look what are these? How can you have a tree here? Well, it's the top of the tree that used to be in front of column 16, but it's been kicked 100 feet to the north. What do we mean 100 feet to the north? How can that be? Well, here's a tree trunk visible during the firefighting period. Here it is. You can. I've highlighted the branches. This is between the window at column 5 and 6. You can see the branches are sticking up. You can see the tree trunk underneath. It's incredible. And here it is during the cleanup. They've limbed it so they can begin to get access to it. This is the evening of September 11th. Well, here it is. You've got the tree. It was hit, severed. The momentum slammed it up against the wall, went through the fuselage, ended up here. Only explanation for it. You can't explain it any other way. Here's the retaining wall gouge. The retaining wall gouge, in line with the diesel generator, puts the wings, the engine impacts at about 42 feet apart, which is the dimensions for a 757. Here's a plane projection of the plane into the facade of the building. I've got two insets here. One on the right-hand side is going to be showing columns 18 and 19. The height of the building is, the height of the plane is set by the height of the shattered tree stump. On the right-hand side, the wing is going to be pivoting against the intersection of column 18 and the second floor slab. Here's columns 18 and 19. Column 19, the furthest one to the right, shows that it's been bashed in 18 inches, about 2 feet above the second floor slab. What happened?
I don't know.
It reverted to some email type stuff.
Yeah.
Just a moment ago.
What happened?
Sorry. It's back.
Okay, so I got to go back. This is the plane's going to pivot around the point where the second floor slab and column 18 intersect. Column 19 has been bashed in 18 inches on the second floor. How do you explain that? It can't be explosive, can't be anything else except a large wing impact. Column 18 has really been mangled here. It's been not only bashed in, it's been pushed to the right. It's been pushed to the south. As the wing pivoted around and squished into the building, it pushed out. There's column 18. It's leaning at least 18 inches. That's what I claim, 18 inches to the right. So it's not straight up and down. Something pushed it. If you go to the other side, the north end, you see column 9AA is bowed. It's connected to the top and the bottom, and it's bowed in. And you've got the steel window frame.
You're getting.
It's not me.
It's me.
Please don't do that.
I wish I could. Hang on.
So you have to see this. So I'll describe it. What you're going to see are is not only column 9AA, but right next to it, it speaks to the tremendous amount of deceleration. This wasn't enough force to sever the column and knock the window frame down. And then you've got the fingers, which are actually rotated 90 degrees from 90 or 120 degrees from where they were speaking in the ones at the impact area height are rotated more, suggesting that they've been dragged and turned as the left wing has been dragged into the building. Right? That's what all this shows. And the damage to the second floor near column 12 suggests a mass impacting into the second floor. The wing, if you saw from the impact, was all below the second floor slab. What we're seeing here is where the tail section impacted and knocked down the beam that went across. If there were internal explosions that had done all this, the damage would be out directly in all directions. People say that the columns, those hanging columns, are in fact columns in the floor going up. But if they did, they'd start in the middle of the windows. It can't be there. If you want to know what happened to why there's all this little debris the way it is, there's a huge trailing air mass behind the plane that when the plane goes into the building, not crashes on the ground before, when it goes in the building, this trailing air mass hits up against the wall and reflects to the north, entraining not just light debris, but also the tree parts. you can't throw a tree branch 500 feet with the leaves still on unless there's a trailing air mass. And that explains the distribution of the small light parts. And again, all this is in a 5.5 hour lecture going through the soup and nuts by a dull, boring engineer going through this stuff. But if you want to look at evidence, this is what you got to do. And with that, I've probably gone over my time limit by a lot. So.
Thank you.